So, whatever.
I tried to go through last time, everybody, and rename them committee members
Okay,
on the participants the best I could.
you want to try to do that again this week?
Yeah, I usually go through and just put a hyphen after their name and do it.
Okay.
Officer Seaforth, you have your mic on your shoulder in case you get attacked during the Zoom meeting?
That's it. Can you hear me? Yep. Just
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually working tonight, so if anything happens, I may have to leave.
Well, I gather that this is going to qualify as police harassment of the police.
Well, we're all adults here. We're ready for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'd like us to do you the favor and call a 911 and requiring police, town of Ulster police, right?
Yeah, give it a good 10 minutes and then get me out, would you?
Yeah. Right. It's like one of those fake beepers that you push a button, you know, and it calls you, oh, I've got to take this.
Oh, those were great years ago. That worked out
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully we're all
But,
good
yeah,
tonight.
we'll hope and pray for a quiet night. So,
Right.
Why does it have a mute?
In the
What?
bottom corner is
Put
the-
yours on mute real quick.
now I can't hear either. That's good. Now, Cheryl, we can't hear a thing you're saying. Good.
She's being a wallflower.
Oh, I thought we were having a dance party to start the night. I had thought about hosting this meeting from my warehouse, so there were a picture of a bunch of tires in the background, but
Right. Well, you know, Zoom allows you can go to
yeah, I can put a picture in the background, right?
Mitchell's and get 3 pieces of lime green and pin them together, and then you can use like the background that comes with Zoom of the palm trees and the and the pieces of green screen are like $1 a piece, so $4, and you can have any background you want.
I like that commercial of the guy that's getting the Subway sandwich and he's rolling in the tire. It's
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch, and he rolls up in the tire to get his sandwich.
Well, I'm old enough to remember I think it was the Fisk tire ad, which was a little boy with a tire over his shoulder and a candle in a candle holder saying "Time to retire."
That unfortunately you're showing your age because that's now become a collector's item.
Yeah,
Anybody who has that specific poster, it's worth
Yeah.
lots of money in the industry.
yeah, yep,
Hello,
yep.
Stefan.
Hi, Clayton. How are you?
Good,
Hi,
good.
everybody.
Hopefully, we committee members won't need police protection.
From each other only, maybe.
That's it.
Maybe I should wear my mittens, you know, and
All right, we're getting some good participation. Good. We got some people coming on. Good. Got a few minutes to go yet. It's I have 6:55 on my kind timer. So
Okay, can you hear me now?
yeah. A lot of echo. What was all that feedback from?
I'm in the room next to Sergeant Seaford.
Oh, so he'll have to mute when you're going to talk, if you're going to talk. Okay. Hello, Eileen. See, we've got Bill from the Freeman. We've got Ed is on. Supervisor Quigley. Hank is there.
Is there enough to share, Hank?
I don't think he heard you.
Good to see you back, James, after your brush with COVID.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate it.
I hope you don't have any long-lasting effects. My brother-in-law is one of the long haulers.
Oh, boy.
I want to say that, the biggest issue is the ongoing fatigue that just, I guess it's going to take a while to get away with.
I noticed the last time, when I've been in meetings with more people, I guess when you get up to so many people on the screen, you have to scroll between screens. Is that right on the Zoom?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
And we can see you too.
Yes, I know that you can see me. It's funny when I pressed, on the left-hand side where the mute button is.
Yep.
When it has the red line across it, then you can hear me, which is the unmute. And when I press the mute, then you can hear me. So it's like the opposite of what it says to do.
Are you living in Bizarro world?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Well, now you know it, so they.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm happy here. It's me.
Hello, committee members. How are you?
Oh, hello. Hey, Wayne. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, Wayne.
Nice to see you all.
And the same.
Nice to see you too. Hi, Cheryl.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
Very good. Nice to see you too. How's
I just-
everything?
I just told Sergeant Seaforth, I love your glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Tonight, I assume like the last public meeting, members of the committee are going to keep quiet and listen. Is that right?
That's what the protocol is so that we can be most able to solicit input. However, let's see how it goes. And, I think we've all got to know each other quite well. I think if at some point, as we near the end of the meeting, if you all feel you can moderate yourselves, I do have my iPhone 3-minute timer here. So ideally I think we've got to be flexible, see how it goes. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
Hey, Marlene.
Hi, Jess.
Hi, Eileen. And someone's calling me. All right, hold on.
It's not us.
It's not-
No.
And, hey, Ed.
I have my
Hi.
very
How
special
doing?
cup for tonight. You guys can read it before anybody else gets on.
We all need that.
Okay. I don't get to use this one at work all that often.
No, you got to be careful with that.
I know. But for you hooligans,
Yep, yep.
I'll just sit here tonight like this.
Okay, now just for you, so you all know, this will be out on Facebook Live tonight. Susie Reevy's taking care of that for us. So keep that cup handy, but off to the side. It's I'm seeing that it's 1 minute after 7. So I think it's time to begin our meeting, as long as Susie, or who's pushing the button for the record? Kyle,
I
was
think
I think Kyle said he is. It's recording now, it says.
It's been
Okay.
recording.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
All right,
So we do have that there, Stefan.
good. All right. Something that I neglected to do at the last meeting, which I apologize, but we should start this meeting out by doing the pledge to the flag. So if you would all join me, if you can stand up, do so. If you can't, it's understood. There's a flag right in Jim's office. Great. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, of the
Flag,
United States of
States of
America, and to the republic
Republic for
and
which stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for
for
all.
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 Thank you all very much. I don't know if you all heard that in your earpieces. It sounded pretty cool hearing everybody say that. Okay. Welcome to everyone who has joined us this evening. We're thankful that you're here. Couple things that I would like to review with you this evening. First off, I'd like to recognize all the committee members that have joined us on the Zoom session, but I'm going to go ahead and read off the name of all the committee members. And if you are here, we'll take a minute to recognize you. So Jess Davis, if you'll wave. Okay. Eileen Murphy. Ed Steedle. John Brown. Is he with us tonight? Don't see him. Dr. Walter Woodley is very busy. Hank Yost. There you are. Stuart Dean. Wayne Spanier. Marlene Anderson Butler, Stefan Plachette, Don Gottlieb. We also have with us from the police department, Sergeant Andy Seyfarth. We have Detective Cheryl Benjamin. And we have Officer Fred Kessick, which I believe is not available tonight. Is that correct? Then we
He's not
have,
on tonight.
he's not on, okay. Then we have Chief Kyle Berardi as co-chair and facilitator with me. And then I am Clayton Van Cleek, also serving as co-chair and facilitator. What I would like to, a few quick things I'd like to mention. We did check with the Committee on Open Government and also with our attorney. And we did confirm that we are right in that we do not have to open this meeting to anyone outside of the community. However, we realize that Town of Ulster is a community that has a lot of transient traffic. We're a commercial community. So there was a woman last week who has children that goes to the Chambers School, or there was someone else that wanted to make a comment, though they're not the resident, they want to make a comment that seemed pertinent to the Town of Ulster. So we would like to open this meeting up as we have comments to everyone who wants to speak. We're just going to ask that you give your name, your address, and if you are a resident of the Town of Ulster or not, just so we understand. We will be setting a 3-minute timer that will go off after 3 minutes when someone speaks. And I'll give you a heads up when it's getting close. Again, to remind everyone, this meeting is being held so that we, the members of the committee, can hear the community input regarding the position we've taken for the Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Committee. We had published a document of our draft document. We will be taking the public comment, whether it's been in written form or through verbal, into consideration as we then, in February, produce our final document. I want to direct you also to the website for the Town of Ulster. Anyone who sent an email in or a letter is now on that website. So those people that sent us written comments is now on the website. And we also have from the supervisor, he did answer, gave a nice long answer to the many questions that were asked. So we're doing our best to try to answer the questions. So this evening, we'd like to open it up to public. And I'm trying to look on here to see who I see is not on the committee. And I see, let's start right off, Michael Goldman. your name is on the screen. Would you like 3 minutes to speak?
I would. You can hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. I'm just going to start the timer now, so go ahead.
Okay. First, I insist you answer this question immediately after I finish speaking. I have asked it repeatedly and gotten no response. The draft proposal states, there was no compelling evidence of random or systemic racial or other bias in the way Town of Ulster Police Department I fully stand behind that sentiment. My point tonight is that this committee is not operating transparently and that it is not fully complying with Executive Order 203. At last week's meeting, or following last week's meeting, I directed a list of basic questions about this committee to its members. Lack experience relevant to police reform, calling that suggestion contemptible. This person attempted to defend the committee by highlighting its supposed diversity. They wrote, the committee, while older and largely white, is diverse with people on both ends of the political spectrum, from Trump supporters to liberals, progressives, social work, and mental health professionals. People of color were included, though I haven't seen them at the Zoom meetings. How exactly were the only 2 people of color on this committee included if they apparently weren't at your meetings? Moreover, where are the LGBTQAI plus members of this committee? Where are the representatives of social justice groups? Where are the people who have been victims of police violence or mistreatment? Where are the high school students and young people who have to deal with SROs and who may be affected by the decisions this committee makes for the majority of their lives? This committee is supposed to be composed of and consult stakeholders with an emphasis in areas with high numbers of police and community interactions. How exactly are you defining stakeholders? Merely including 2 people of color, although apparently not in actual meetings, on a committee composed primarily of white retired professionals doesn't look like a meaningful attempt is being made to comply with that portion of the directive. In fact,
Okay, thank you. Your time has passed.
okay,
Okay. Thank you very much. Next person to speak would be Chris Hoffman. Chris Hoffman. Okay. And okay, I see Chris Hoffman is not responding. I see one with the initials ADA. I don't know who that is. If ADA would like to speak. Okay, we have no response from ADA. Does anyone see anyone else on the screen that is not a member of the committee who is just general public? I do not. Okay. While we wait, if there's anyone else that comes in, I believe Walter, that's Walter Woodley, is that correct? Committee member Walter Woodley, is that you on the phone?
Yes, I just came on.
All right, thank you, sir. Dr. Woodley, he is one of our committee members. Okay. All right. Chris Hoffman did Chris Hoffman just left?
Yeah. I'm wondering if you're having so few community members here to comment why you were so quick to cut off the last speaker. It sounded like he had some very compelling things to ask you.
We have a 3-minute limit and we're trying to be fair and I don't have the full screen of everything.
I understand you have a limit, but you're clearly like fishing for people to talk. So
would you
why
like
don't you let him finish?
Would you like to speak?
I would like to yield my time to the previous speaker.
He's
do it.
That's not what we do. I'm sorry. So
Wait, I'm sorry, is that not my 3 minutes that I'm allowed to have? So I can't
You
give
tell, all right,
that to
let's
somebody
start over,
else who
Mr. Hoff.
clearly
Let's
has
start
something to
over,
say
please.
that you cut off.
Let's start over.
So
Mr.
this
like
is
to
not an
speak?
honest approach here. This is not
Mr.
an honest,
Hoffman.
transparent approach if
If
that's
you
what you're
would-
gonna
if-
act.
Mr. Hoffman.
Mr.
if you-
Hoffman, this is Supervisor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I rain on your parade? I'm
No,
sorry.
you didn't, quite frankly. If you would care to look at the town's website, I did put out the policy
If
that
you
the
would
town has
care to
followed.
just,
Now, let me finish, Mr. Hoffman. I have the floor. Mr. Goldman will be
oh,
providing
good boy.
time.
Oh, I'm so happy
Mr.
for you. Why don't you just
Hoffman,
boot me from the
please.
goddamn meeting then?
Mr. Goldman will be provided time when you finish your comments and ADA, if she wishes, or whoever that is, wishes to make comments. And if there's any other members of the public here, the rules, as I stated.
You were
will
purposefully cutting off somebody who
Mr.
has something to say,
Hoffman,
and when I
please.
offered to yield my
Not
time to him,
on this.
you refused to in a very undemocratic way.
Mr. Hoffman, our rules state yielding of time is not permitted. That is a rule that the town board has implemented
That's very
since
convenient.
2015. It is not very convenient. It's
Very
been there
convenient, yes.
for 5 years. Now, if I may finish, we will go through the 3 members of the public. We will ask if anybody else have any comments, and then we will turn the floor over to Mr. Goldman. And that's how I like to proceed according to our rules.
Okay, please, may I have the, floor? Mr. Goldman, last week, we did allow anyone else who wanted to speak, and Mr. Hoffman also, when everyone was over, we offered a second round. I was about to mention that, so, okay, so let's move on then. We have, once again, we have ADA. There's no apparent comment from her or him. I don't know who that is. Okay, I don't know who that is. So, Michael Goldman, if you would like 3 more minutes, we'd be happy to have you speak, sir.
Thank you. Okay, to resume, I'll jump back a little bit. This committee is supposed to be composed of and consult with stakeholders with an emphasis in areas with high numbers of police and community interactions. How exactly are you defining stakeholders? Merely including 2 people of color, although apparently not in meetings, on a committee primarily composed of white retired professionals does not look like any meaningful attempt is being made to comply with that directive. The fact is, to a critical observer like myself, it looks like this committee is primarily composed of people who have more interest in maintaining the status quo than in substantially challenging the system and seeking an end to racial oppression. I spent more time comparing the 2 documents available that you made available to the public to Executive Order 203 and found that most of the directives in the order are unaddressed. Perhaps you have addressed these items in some way, but without making those details available to the public, it is impossible to conclude anything other than that you have not yet done that work. To reiterate, how can the public meaningfully engage in this process without basic information about the committee's activities? So, what studies addressing systemic racial bias or racial justice in policing has the committee considered, and how have they affected your proposals? How have you considered evidence-based policing strategies related to use of force policies, procedural justice, implicit bias training, law enforcement assisted diversion programs, community-based conflict resolution, problem-oriented policing, hotspot policing, focused deterrence, and criminal prevention through environmental design? Where is the comprehensive review of current police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices? The subcommittee that seems to have focused on these areas simply suggested introducing body cameras, conducting a PR charm offensive, and a police liaison program. There is no indication that a comprehensive review was done, is what I'm saying. Please, if you are genuinely interested in using the opportunity afforded you by your membership on this committee to seek an end to racial oppression at the hands of police, please reconsider the focus of the committee and its composition. Most importantly, I urge you to proactively seek out the guidance of Hudson Valley's activists of color and racial justice organizations and uncompromisingly advocate for their demands. And I would like to reiterate again, please answer that question. That you're all here. No one wants to talk. Just tell me, how did you reach the conclusion that no evidence, that no systemic racial bias was happening at the hands of police in Ulster County when your arrest reports show a disproportionate arrest rate for people of color? Just answer.
Okay.
It's not that hard. Thank you.
Thank you, and you beat your time. You're great. I tell you, ADA is now ready to comment, And then I do have some people that I think would like to make some comments that may help you understand this. So ADA, your hand is up, please. ADA's mic is muted, so, okay. Cheryl, you have your hand up. Cheryl Benjamin?
Good evening. I want to start first by, and I know I have 3 minutes, I'm trying to make this quick. I want to start first by thanking all the committee members for your time, and just know that your work did not go unnoticed or unappreciated. I know you guys spent endless hours with us working, looking up things, speaking to different people, bringing in different aspects of policing, as well as utilizing the police officers that are on the committee. And so I thank you for that. I also thank Councilman and Chief for being the heads of and highest ranking members of our police department, and letting just the mere fact that you guys are involved in this just shows us that you're willing to take a stance. In terms of policing, while I understand the historical context of policing and the origination of policing, I am very much interested in the BIPOC community and how policing affects it, especially within the town that I work, being a woman and being a woman of color. With that said, I think it is important for us to not lose focus on the fact that while it does happen on a national and global level where African Americans are being treated differently, and there is racism, there is discrimination, there are biases within the police force, when we say that it doesn't blatantly appear in the town of Ulster, I think just putting numbers out saying that 30% of our arrests are only people of color, or people of color, is not an accurate account of that. Being a detective, I can tell you that most of our major crimes, I'm talking about our sex offenders, our homicides, our recidivists, do not make up people of the BIPOC community. Our last, I could say maybe 5 homicides have been white males. Our burglar recidivists have been white males. Our sex offender registry is mostly comprised of white males. And for that reason, when you look at that 30%, we need to take into account that that 30% is a very small percentage for, it seems like disproportionate, but you also should break it down into what kinds of crimes that occur that cause those arrests. Those are not proactive arrests. Those are secondary to complaints, which fulfill the mostly our petty crimes, which is reflective of a socioeconomic status. I don't think that our police officers go out necessarily and just start arresting 30% of the minorities. And without the actual numbers, I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea or ideology, but that is the truth. And so when we just give these numbers, I think breaking it down will help everyone across the board understand that while as a police department and as a person of color, I do understand that there are separations and discriminations, it is very difficult to give you proof that it happens in the town of Ulster. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. Yes, I think I see a hand up. Bill, William?
Thank you. Bill Kimball from the Daily Freeman. Realizing that this is a statement period rather than a question period, I'm still going to ask the question so that in hopes when somebody does talk, they might answer. The executive order was put together based upon incidents that occur around the nation. And what's been stated for the committee is to focus on what happens with the town of Ulster Police Department. Now, I pretty much realize that everything that officers do is the toughest job on the face of the planet. This goes without saying. All of that, my question boils down to this, is the town of Ulster has a policy of de-escalating incidents. What I'd like to ask is, in the committee, is there plans to raise the issue of what happens when that policy is in conflict of what an officer sees on the scene. Since there is an example of that in the town of Ulster, I'm curious as to whether this committee plans to address it and write it up in any way in terms of a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bill. I'm going to try ADA again. She has just texted me saying she's ready to speak, or he or she. I'm sorry. I know somebody that has that name. It might be. So you are available. Go ahead. You're unmuted. So speak. There you go. Okay. I am sorry, but the person with the name ADA, you chatted to me saying you wanted to speak, but we don't hear. Does anybody else hear her? Okay. Okay, so we'll continue to wait.
Eileen
I'm
has
looking for,
her hand up.
who?
Eileen has her hand.
Eileen, you have your hand up. Eileen, you're muted. Eileen, you're muted. You're muted, Eileen.
Unmute.
There
Okay,
you go. Now
can
you're
hear
good.
me. Thank
There
you.
go.
I wanted to respond to the disproportionate number of arrests of BIPOC and say that as a subcommittee, we reviewed a number of complaints and use of force. And we were, of course, not able to determine that there was a high number of BIPOC because the population of the town of Ulster is mostly white. So our committee was very interested in making sure that we addressed the question of racial injustice and talked with the number of police officers about, how can we explore this issue and be fair to what the governor has asked us to do. And what was revealed in this conversation, which was, in my experience, a very transparent interaction with the police and the chief, was that if we were going to review that subject, we would maybe perhaps take a look at the arrests that were made in the business district. And it is in the business district that there is an overlap of people who do not reside in the town of Ulster. So this is where we got that number. And that kind of exploration was very helpful, because what we were able to understand is that there was probably a little bit more work to be done in that area about how to explore who is being arrested and what the charges are, as well as making, I guess I want to say something that I didn't say in the committee, was that probably added to that is that it's probably not always likely that a person of color would be quick to make too many complaints for fear of retribution. That might be something too. So I think that we're all affected by the national picture that we've seen. And I would also say that my intentions were honorable, and I felt that the information that I got was transparent. And I appreciate everyone's comments. And since this is an organic document, I'm sure that these things will be looked at a little further. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Phil E. Phil E.
Yes,
Yes, would you like to comment? Name, your address and your residency, please?
oh, I didn't have any comment to make, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm so, okay. I thought you did. Okay. Amanda, here, I'm trying to manage my clock, and it's pause, cancel. Amanda Cabanil, I can't see the full name. Did you have a comment? Okay. I see Chris Hoffman. Okay. ADA has your hand raised again. We'll try again.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, very good.
Hi. My question, thank you for inviting me into this conversation. My question goes back to the crisis intervention and de-escalation. Is that training? Is there a name of the training program that is taken? And if so, is it taught or is the training being done by a clinical psychologist or a social worker? How is that conducted?
Okay, Cheryl, I saw you nodding your head, and since ADA still has time left on hers, can you answer that question?
I am a hostage negotiator, which specializes in speaking with people who are in crisis, whether, it doesn't necessarily have to be hostages. I know that recently a few more officers have been trained in critical incident training. They're CIT certified, which are done throughout, and the chief could chime in. I don't know the specifics of it, but I know that is something that before, in previous agencies I've worked for, only 1 or 2 people are certified. I do think we have a very high number of people who are certified in CIT, and I think there are plans to have more.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that good? Does that help you?
Yeah, so, okay, Cheryl Benjamin, you are the one who does the crisis intervention training for all of the troops, like when they get it done. I think I heard like 2 or 3 times a year.
DCJS puts on the training. I am a negotiator for the police department. I don't do the training.
Oh, that's what I was looking for, like who actually does the trainings? You said
DCJS, Department of Criminal Justice Services.
Okay, so is it the training done by a therapeutic?
New York State has their guidelines that they set forth for it. When I went, there were previous FBI agents who did it. There were psychologists who came in, and some clinical psychologists, some assessment people who come in and do assessments. Those type of people are trained. But the chief can probably give you better answers than I can.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, that's a question Chief Berardi could get back on a public document. I think get an answer on that. Liz C.
Clayton, may I suggest when you give somebody the mic that you tell them to unmute themselves, because it seems like everybody you have called on has been muted.
I will try. Yes. Liz C., please unmute your mic and speak.
Yes, I actually didn't raise my hand or put anything in the chat, but I will ask a couple of questions. I'd like to know how the committee was formed and what you did to reach out to Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, as well as LGBTQ communities.
Yep.
There's been a couple of instances of police brutality from this police department in the past couple of weeks. They've come to light. And I want to know what you're doing to address those. I'd also like to know, actually, I'll let you start with those, and then I have a couple other questions. I'll get back in line.
Okay, we can't address all questions. I'm going to reiterate, this meeting is supposed to be, we're allowing the residents to make recommendations to us as to what we should consider or add to our policy.
Oh, sure. I think that you should have more Black people on your committee, as well as LGBTQ members of the community.
And if I'll just reiterate, if you could check the website, and you'll see the supervisor did do a response relative to that. We did accept everyone who applied for this committee, and we did attempt to outreach to different parts of our community. So we wish we could have done what would have appeared to be better, but we are doing the best with what we have. So.
Okay, if you were going to answer it, I was also wondering like how you did that outreach. So if you are going to touch on that, I'd like to hear like what those
we can get back in writing on that to you. Yep.
Thanks.
We got that noted as a question. Thank you very much. Okay, if someone else has a question, would you please Yes. Wayne Spanier, unmute your microphone. You can do this, Wayne. I know you can. You can unmute that mic. You have the technology.
There we go. Just
There
my
you go.
wife and I are both trying to do it at the same time. This is my wife, Karen, by the way. Yeah, just in regards to the questions about diversity, the panel was open to everyone, and I myself was hoping to see a greater representation of people showing up. And we did have a few people of color who showed up, I guess, at the initial meeting or two, but I don't know, maybe for whatever reason they weren't able to continue serving. But I did want to add that in terms of reaching out, I mean, I consider myself to be a strongly progressive person in terms of my politics. And I have felt on this committee that although there's a wide diversity of politics and points of view that people come with, I have felt that there's been a tremendous amount of mutual respect and a willingness to hear each other out, which I really appreciate. And I think that's been the tone of the committee. It's not been combative, but it's been very much one of people being open to learning from one another. And I think that's the only way we can really make progress, because as I've said before, it's very easy to divide into warring camps and circle the wagons. And I both understand that being a police officer is an extremely difficult job. And I also feel that it's an extremely difficult thing to be a Black person in America. So if we're going to find any common ground, everybody has to be willing to let their defenses down a bit and be heard. So the last thing I'll mention is that in regard to bringing in people who have some more expertise in this area from communities of color, I have spoken with, and the committee has told me we'd be welcome to bring in at some point in our committee meetings, Lester Strong, who has spent many years organizing a group called Peaceful Guardians, which has been working with the city of Kingston, trying to build these bridges of communication between the police and communities of color. So we are trying to access these areas of expertise, and the committee has been open to that. So that's something that I've been kind of championing, and I'm very encouraged that the committee is open to bringing in this expert, experience from outside. So that's what I had to say.
Thank you. Mr. Quigley, you want to make a comment? Mr. Quigley?
There we go. In response to Liz C., you asked how the committee was formed, and I wrote the answers, and they're posted on the town's website and the town's Facebook page. We did outreach within the community of the town of Ulster. The 13 members of the committee are the 13 applicants. There were no rejections. So if you wish to discuss that further, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. Second, during your statement, you made a statement about 2 recent incidents of police brutality in the town of Ulster. Those incidents have not reached my desk. And if you have personal knowledge of those, or have personal knowledge of the individuals that were harassed, I would encourage you to have them call me as soon as possible. This is not tolerated in the town of Ulster. The third thing, you asked about outreach. Prior to this committee being formed, Police Chief Berardi had several interactions with the LBGQ committee in Uptown Kingston. And I would defer to him because he was the one that was personally involved in those discussions, and he can explain what happened there. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. looking to see who else may be wanting to make a comment. If you are, please raise your hand so I can see. We are taking notes from the chat session, so there are some questions that have come up. Some things that have been mentioned there that we will take note of, we'll continue to take note of. I would like to say that everyone who joined this committee in the beginning is still on the committee. I don't recall anyone stepping down. So Chris Hoffman, I see your hand was raised.
Yeah, I'd just like to make make a comment that you started off this meeting by stressing how you wanted everybody to state their address and whether or not they lived in the town of Ulster before commenting, with a clear intimidation factor of trying to make sure to prioritize the overwhelmingly white population of your residents, discounting the fact that people from all over the area are impacted by what your police do. And second of all, it's not our responsibility to tell you about every investigation that's happening in a department when you guys are specifically tasked with overseeing that department and the accountability of that department to the community. So like the fact that you don't know about active investigations of police brutality in the department tells me you're not doing your jobs.
Okay, I just want to be careful. We are not going to have regular back and forth discussions, and I do not want the next comment to have anything to do with that other than Jim, go ahead.
Way to control the conversation.
Response to Mr. Hoffman, number one, the Miss Good incident was on.
I thought he just said he didn't want to hear anything else about this, and now
Jim,
you get the privilege to respond, though, right?
Excuse me. I'm going to stop. That comment, your question is legitimate, and we want to answer it. We are not going to discuss private citizens' names that are not on this meeting. So that you can call the supervisor's office tomorrow morning and speak directly with him if you'd like. I don't.
But to pretend like you don't even know that it's happening is absolute nonsense.
Mr. Hoffman, the incident with the young lady occurred on a New York State freeway.
Oh, so you don't know about it. So you do know about it.
Yes, it did not involve the town of Ulster.
What about
police.
the other young lady that was yanked and had her arm half broken almost by the town of Ulster cop? You don't know about that?
That issue was primarily a sheriff's department. I'm fully aware of the investigation going on.
Actually, it was a town of Ulster cop.
No, it wasn't.
We're not going to discuss this back and forth.
I'm not going to respond to that.
Right, okay. So
Thank you.
please, we will take, this committee has published every comment that we have received. We have tried to put everything that we have received on the website and made it as available as possible. We're prepared to take more comments, and we would encourage that. And we will publish every written document that we get, and this recording of this meeting will be published on the website, as was last week's meeting. There is nothing that we are editing or hiding from the public.
Malia would like to speak.
Okay, Malia.
Hi, I'm not a town of Ulster resident, but I do have children who attend public schools
Yes.
in the town of Ulster.
You talked with us last week, right, about Chambers School, was it?
I didn't specify
sorry.
Chambers, but yes.
Okay, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Well, my children will be in the middle school, potentially moving forward. So I'm very concerned about SROs at the school. Especially, I'm not sure if you heard about recent incidents, I think maybe yesterday or today in Florida, of a girl was tased in the cafeteria and another girl was like thrown across the room. I'm very concerned about those kinds of things. Maybe there's no record of that kind of thing happening here, which is great. But I was reading earlier that the City of Kingston police group like this, they put together some recommendations, and at the very least, you guys should be adopting these kinds of things. I'll read some of them from the article I read. Let's see. They recommend implementing annual implicit bias training, which I'm on the fence about that anyways, as to its efficacy. Also, creating prescriptive protocols for engagement between law enforcement and citizens to address unconscious bias. There's also a recommendation to amend the agreement between the Kingston School District and Kingston City Police Department to specifically state that children will not be subject to criminal prosecution for offenses that represent developmentally appropriate adolescent behavior, even if those behaviors are technically crimes. The article goes on to say the language in the agreement also should include additional specifics about restraints and student privacy. Also, school resource officers should be plain clothed and should not bring firearms or other weapons to school. If you cannot reach any kind of agreement like that or implement that, then I don't think that there should be SROs in the schools. I don't think there should be SROs in the schools anyways, because I'm not really sure what they're protecting our students from. And in fact, I worry about those students, especially kids of color, who may feel more frightened by their presence. You know, based on all the incidences of police brutality across the country, you know, that we learned about last year, especially. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Malia. Michael is next, but I just want to add that we, just so you understand, we're thankful that we have been able to get copies. Other towns and groups that are meeting like this in the last month have started sending us copies of some of their stuff we're sharing. So for instance, we do have the City of Kingston one, and that will be presented to our committee when we meet again. Well, Michael Goldman, you're next.
Yeah, hi. I don't have anything prepared, so I might ramble. Sorry.
I got my timer going, Michael. You're okay.
All right. So you're talking about you want to be transparent, et cetera. So like I pulled out all those examples of things that I didn't see in your documents. So like the question is, share that with us. Why isn't that available? If you're saying, oh, we did a good job, we addressed everything in the order, why can I go through and find no reference to any of these issues, right? To any of these points that are in the order. And like, in addition to that, like, how did you, this is a specific question, how did you decide what you were gonna address? Because things like SROs, programs like civilian mental health programs, you know, mental health responders aren't police. These are like big topics of national conversation that I would think if you were engaged in this topic, you would at least consider, especially considering that other areas are doing this, right? They're examining these questions. So like, did you think about these things and you're just not telling us? Or did you just not even think about it at all? In which case, how did you decide what to look at? Thanks.
Okay, and Michael, what I would ask you to do is, I think you're starting to get to some ideas that I think you should document for us. So it is very possible there were things that we didn't consider. That's a possibility. And that's what this is about. It's about trying to find out, what did we miss? We did not proclaim that everything this group brought together was perfect and the best. So far, we're in receipt of quite a few documents that are going to have to be considered. We got a lot of work ahead of us in the month of February as we integrate what we've received so far as public comment. So though it did start out harshly, I want to encourage you that we do value and will take in equal weight everyone's comment that is trying to participate in this meeting. I see there's some other people who have joined the meeting. If you are wanting to speak, could you please unmute your mic and say so, or raise your hand? Okay, Phil E. Go ahead, please. Unmute your mic, Phil, and speak.
Okay, thank you. Yes, now I'm ready.
Phil, could I just say one thing? Somebody complained that I am not asking name, address, and residency, because I trusted, but please, would you mind? Someone asked me to hold to that. So could you tell us your name, address, and residency?
Yes, my name is Phil Lerner, and I live in Midtown, Kingston City, Kingston. And as someone who does business in the town of Ulster, that's part of what brings me here tonight. I have read my own municipality's report that just came out, and it doesn't. It seems to me the Governor's Executive Order 203 has been called in part specifically concerning incidences of violence by police against, well, this goes without saying, it says it right there, instances of violence by police against people of color across the United States, and particularly Black folks. And of course, the violence is perpetrated using firearms, guns. There are various words that one could use to describe what's going on in that violence. And going through the Kingston report, I didn't see too many examples of that, and I intend to address that to the folks who put that report out when I have the chance. But seeing as I'm just jumping in the process here in Ulster for the first time tonight, I'm wondering what the nature of your conversation has been around specifics on use of force, guns, firearms, or other terms like that. Can we expect to see you talking very explicitly about the ways in which violence can transpire between police and civilians? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. From the public that would wish to make a comment, please either raise your hand or unmute your mic and speak, please. Okay, while we wait, Mr. Sapart, is there anything that you wanted to comment on? I thought you raised your hand earlier. Did you say something?
I did not raise my hand.
Oh, okay, somebody waved at you then. Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who has already spoke that would like to say anything else? We're into almost round 4.
Hi, I don't know how to raise my hand, but this
Oh,
is
hi,
Malia
Malia.
again.
Yes, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
have one more question. I put it in the chat box, but will you be speaking to students at Miller about their feelings or maybe suggestions regarding SRO policies and your officers? You know, maybe things that they think could be improved or how they feel their relationships are with that guy.
Chief Berardi, we could best answer that. Did we solicit input from there?
And I mean from all students, not just a couple.
No,
I mean like a full survey of the school. Thanks.
There's nobody in school.
Generally, we evaluate, the SRO program's evaluated yearly. Obviously, every summer we go through the process and speak amongst the superintendent and principals and staff and students relative to any questions or concerns that were raised the prior year. So yearly, we just don't enter into agreement without trying to see what we can do better from the previous year. And obviously, taking into consideration the school district as a whole has their own committee formed evaluating the SRO program as a whole in their district. And we're working closely with them. Anything we can do better, or in the end, if they decide to not want to contract with any police agency, then we'll honor their respective request and we'll pull from that program.
I did not mean to insult anyone. When I said that about kids in school, I was being light. It has been a little difficult because of not normal school sessions or anything in our community has not been normal due to the COVID restrictions. I was not saying that there are no kids in school, so thank you. Kyle, thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else want to speak to the committee? Let me go back to the other page. Am I missing anyone? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, who is speaking, please?
This is Ada.
Okay, Ada, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm going back to the crisis intervention again. And I think that that is important as the first thing that officers, sheriffs, whoever is in that position when they approach somebody, I think knowing how to de-escalate properly and knowing crisis intervention could prevent so many deaths. So I think it's important for all the police commissions and departments to, make public who is doing the training for these crisis interventions and the de-escalations, because they're not working. That's all.
Okay, all right, we'll take note of that, okay? Kyle?
And in reference to that, and I know Detective Benjamin had mentioned before about hostage negotiation, crisis intervention training is a separate platform that's trained to officers. It's sponsored through Ulster County and People's USA, which is People USA is based out of Dutchess County. It handles emotional and crisis distress amongst individuals. But a part of that training over the last year or so is adapting to emotional distress and crisis amongst police officers. So we're not only being trained to how to handle persons in crisis, we're also training ourselves on how to handle ourselves should we be in crisis. So it's a two-part training that's been adapted over the last year, and it's done twice a year. And like I said, it's sponsored through the Ulster County and People's USA, who puts it on. And as we continuously have the ability, we'll continue to send officers to get certified in that.
Okay, stop the timer, cancel. Chris Hoffman again, please. I don't
I'm
see
sorry,
anyone
but
else. Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be better to have actual trained psychologists in like working with members of the community and the police officers, and actually instead of just spending more money on police officers to get trained in yet another thing that they're going to really be bad at, why don't we actually take money away from the police department? Here's a novel idea, and put it into mental health care.
Okay. Yes, Jess Davis has her hand up.
So I would just like to introduce myself. I am a committee member. I was in a mixed race marriage, and I have raised my 2 biracial children in the town of Ulster since my oldest daughter was 3, over 20 years. One of my children has had interaction with the police, and it was a very positive experience in her life overall. That's something I haven't shared with the committee or the general public. And I just want to say to anyone coming in from the outside, we brought this committee together in the fall of 2020 in the midst of a pandemic with a 3-inch thick guideline, a book provided to us by the state. We have spent a very great deal of time looking at files, looking at employees, different officers, looking for patterns, searching through different interactions during traffic stops, arrests, etc. I think when we look at the country as a whole, there is a great concern, and I feel confident in my peers on the committee that we all share a passion for doing what's right and taking what we did for this committee to the fullest. And we spent hours upon hours meeting weekly through the fall season, through the holidays, connecting via Zoom, meeting in rooms in person. And I think maybe from the outside, it's easy to say what we should be doing or how we should be doing it. And I understand that you may not be able to see what actually happened during our process. So any of your feedback is helpful to us. That's why we're opening this to the community. You know, two minds are better than one. And I think it's easier to hear the community when you're not maybe putting us on the defensive. So I just want to thank my committee peers for the sacrifice of your time. It's been a lot of late nights and a lot of long weeks. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Liz, you wanted to be next?
Yeah, I just wanted to, just a quick response to that last committee member. Executive Order 203 was delivered in June 12th. I'm sorry that you didn't form this until the fall. That's not really the public's problem. And that's the problem. We're supposed to be open to everything that's actually happening in the community and these meetings. That's part of Executive Order 203. And it sounds like maybe you haven't read or fully grasped what the full order is. I've been working on this since June 13th when I saw it come down. Been doing that in all the communities I'm a stakeholder in, as well as the one that I actually live in, and Town of Ulster where I work, which is why it should be open to anyone who's a stakeholder. So I just want to make sure that everyone who is not on the committee understands that we should be knowing everything that's happening. This should be as transparent as possible. It states it. You can just Google Executive Order 203, pops right up. You can read it. It's not that long, very clear. And yes, there is a 3-inch workbook. I remember contacting the governor about that. I wouldn't say it's 3 inches. But I'll allow a little bit of that. But it does have like, hey, here's how you do it. I remember asking for supplemental information because I wasn't happy with Cuomo and how little information he had given. But in terms of not starting until the fall, that's not the public's problem. So thanks, but no thanks. And also, I would like to ask the committee to intentionally include marginalized folks moving forward. If you can't do that, there are multiple organizations that this committee can contact in the area. That includes the Newburgh LGBTQ Center, Rise Up Kingston, Citizen Action, just to name a few. The town can use the police budget to pay for their time and their services. There's thinly veiled racism, and it's being exhibited from members of our town about a committee that was created by a state executive order, not because Black Lives Matter came in. And it's spurred by the killing of George Floyd. It says this in the order, in Executive Order 203. It literally says, whereas George Floyd was murdered and whereas Black Lives Matter. That is why this committee is formed. So anyone else, that just so you know, and I'm finishing up, but the committee is for looking at how the police look at the relationship with the historically marginalized groups, but because we've already established that there is a problem. It's not to determine that, it's because there is a problem. And we need to hear from those groups, not about how great the police department is serving the white folks of the town of Ulster.
Hey, thank you very much. I just want to reiterate that we are trying to conduct this meeting in as open a format as possible, but according to the governor's order in the book that I read, and we did check with New York State, that we are not subject to the rules of the open meeting because they wanted us to have as open and confidential conversations as possible in order to help everyone. So there are some things that this committee talked about or heard that we are not able at this moment to share with you because it's helping to develop things. But I urge you to send us your comments, send us your information, send us whatever you think is valuable to us as we endeavor to do the right thing here. If you understand or know of any area that we have covered up or blocked, we want to hear from you. Michael, you asked to speak again.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah, so I think part of the criticism here is that the wrong people are on the committee, right? So like, I'm sorry that like you worked really hard. That's awesome. But like, if if you're not the right people to be looking at this information, then it's all moot. And so like, you also mentioned that, you did it during a pandemic. That's true. That does make it more challenging. If there's questions about whether you've complied with the order, the public, as expressed here, doesn't feel that you are the committee is properly composed. Maybe you as a committee should ask the state for more time and ask that they implement a compliance officer who can come and help make sure that you're doing it right. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, I just need to reiterate, since you had some time left, that we opened this up to our entire community and reached out to everyone and accepted everyone who applied. And then we pleaded with the members of the committee to reach out to their friends and neighbors and everyone that they're involved with. So I understand your concern and I understand your complaint. I can see the screen just like you can. But enough said about that. Next speaker, or someone else would like to speak? I'm sorry if I can't see everyone.
Yeah, I'd like to just respond. It seems like when we're bringing up concerns, it's often met with an initial, listen, we tried that already. So
No.
please hear what we're saying, try harder.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else?
Just
This is
one
Kyle
thing I'd like-
Berardi.
like to add, obviously, I believe most people know, but keep in mind that Town of Ulster is not just policed by the Ulster Police Department. They're also policed by the New York State Police and the Ulster County Sheriff's Office. As we don't control the actions of their officers, we can only control the actions of ours.
Well, you could ask them to not patrol in your town.
No, we can't. But
You
anyway,
could cut the police budget so much that you don't need that many people, have them all part-time and just let the other people take care of it then.
You could also not sign an agreement with Kingston agreeing to share police forces with each.
if you'd
There
like
are
to,
thousands of options here, actually.
please document your options. So we will accept them. Send them to us. Please. I don't think you think we're serious, but we are.
This is going to be recorded and saved,
It
right?
is recorded. It's recorded and will be on the town's website.
Okay, so this is being documented now then.
Oh, it's been documented. So was the last meeting. Every question we had asked last week, we tried to answer publicly on the website. And those questions that we could, we did answer. And again, tonight, we will try to do the same. We have the chat open on the right side of my screen. We can see that. We are taking minutes of what's being said. We have a recording of what's being said, and we will be trying to implement and consider everything that's being said. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak that would have a comment relevant to the committee's preparing this document? Okay. I see no hands raised. I see no one. Go
I was
ahead.
typing in this in the chat, but I'm just going to say it. We're not just coming up with this stuff out of nowhere. You can go look at the same things that we are. Activists of color have been bringing up these suggestions for literally hundreds of years. You have every access to this information. Don't put it on us.
Okay. I'm not putting anything on anyone. I just want you to know we were accused of not accepting things. If you think we didn't hear something, please remind us then. Okay, I think we've done a pretty good job of listening and trying to do.
Sorry, I put my hand up.
I'm sorry, who am I hearing?
This is Malia.
Go
I have
ahead.
one more question, if that's okay. Last week, I saw was answered in the questions from last week asking about if any members of the police force had attended the events at the Capitol. But I was wondering, this is sort of related in terms of overt white supremacy. I was wondering if you could include in your report more detailed about how you go about selecting new members of the force and, you know, screening them, like to make sure they're not participating in these like very fringe extremist racist groups. And I would, if you could also talk more about how the disciplinary procedures for officers who are found to be participating and how often you check to make sure that people are participating, not participating, and that sort of thing. Thanks.
I would direct you to Supervisor Quigley did respond to that question. And I think it's answered there, but if not, we will try to get more information for you on it. Supervisor Quigley?
Thank you for your question. The governor's budget proposal includes a section related to police reform. I do not have the language because I just learned about it about 2 hours ago. They are proposing to establish minimum standards for hiring for police officers and implementing mandatory background checks. So I believe that checks the box on your first question. The governor will be issuing, as long as the legislature, and I'm certain that the legislature will adopt this, the rules that will dictate to us what we can and cannot do on recruitment. your second question about association. I asked for a memo from our labor attorney, and I received a memo from our labor attorney that basically says there is a right under the Constitution of the United States of America for free association. Now, that starts to interfere with the duties of a police officer when activities that they take prevent them from discharging their duties. And that is something that we are looking into right now. I will tell you that that change is going to require negotiations between the town and the town's police union. It is a mandatory subject of negotiation under the New York State labor laws, the Taylor law specifically relating to municipalities. So it is something that we looked into. Thirdly, I think I stated in my response to the questions that the town of Ulster has had a policy and has practiced terminating employees who had committed crimes. And that will continue. We also changed our police discipline law, removing the police department from the contractually negotiated process of arbitration. Now, if anyone is familiar with the incident in New Paltz with the officer who created the rap video, the town attempted to fire the individual, but they went to arbitration and the arbitrator ruled that he did not break a law. Now, what he did do was break several policies of the police department, and that between the union and the town, they negotiated what was called a last chance agreement. The agreement stated very clearly, for the lack of a better term, the officer was supposed to maintain perfect behavior. That was the document that was violated that caused the officer to be terminated as a town of New Paltz police officer. So we have taken and attempted over a number of years to change our laws within the town to make sure that we could act quicker in situations where we have problems. So Malia, I hope I've addressed some of your issues. I know I'm not going to address them all, but we have been working on some of the things that you've talked about.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I think it's time to conclude this public meeting. I think we have successfully navigated through what could be difficult for all of us, but this is something we all want to participate in. We want to hear, this committee I speak for, they want to hear everyone's input. That's why we scheduled 2 public meetings, not 1. And that's why we modified our format after the first one with comments and recommendations and criticisms of our last meeting last week. So the forum is still there. We're asking you to continue to send us written form, whether it's email, you can call the supervisor's office, you can call the police department, you can contact us however you want to. I think there has been some discussion, I'll let you know, that our committee would be interested after we're done in continuing more of a forum which would allow for discussion rather than just a listening with the inability to talk. So I hope we have started to bridge into some new ground where we will be able to have true forums where there is discussion. There were some raised tempers and there were some issues made, but I am very, very thankful for each person that was willing to join this meeting tonight and take the time to express your opinions or just listen. I speak for all the committee people as they have spoke to me. I believe this group is trying to do the best job they can. They do not do it under an obligation of a mandate. They all do it because they freely volunteered and wanted to be part of a solution to what is a perceived problem throughout our communities at large. and have the opportunity to deal with it at a local level. So at this point, I would like to conclude this meeting. Chief Berardi, do you agree with that, concluding the meeting?
Yes, I think one of the questions I just read in the chat,
Okay.
the people were curious of the deadline for written comments. I don't know if we want to come up with a date at this present time.
We do need to have these comments to assure you that the committee can deal with them. We have to have them by the end of January, because the committee has to finalize its document in February, so that it has to be presented to the town board prior to in March. It may be that we get a reprieve from the state, that we get more time, but as of right now, we have to follow the schedule that is in this book. So I think we should say right now that we need input by the end of the month of January. So by the end, how many days are in January? 31? So yes, we need the input by the end of January. Okay. All right, I see people signing off. Before everyone goes, I want to thank everyone for their participation. All you committee members, I'm very proud to be serving you as one of your co-facilitators. Kyle will be sending out a calendar of what our meetings are proposed for the month of February. We will have some more work ahead of us, so I look forward to continued working with you. If I see no other comments, good night, everyone. Peace, safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Good night.